All right, all right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you, wherever you are in this beautiful world. Welcome to our Tuesday morning Inner Circle Live session. I'm your host, Ryan Carthage. We'll be joined shortly by my awesome partners, Mr. Benny Allen and Miss Casey Jackson. I hope everybody is doing well today. Look, man, the week is off to a good start, and I'm excited to be with you guys this morning. If you guys didn't check out the Mindset Monday session yesterday, if you weren't able to attend, definitely strongly suggest going back and watching the recording. We had a great conversation diving into beliefs. So definitely check it out. Today, we're going to take a quick look at fundamentals. And as we go through the charts, we'll talk about some of the things that we still have impacting the world as we wait on some key data to be released. So without further ado, man, let's get to it. So as always, let's turn off all distractions, prepare your minds and your bodies to engage as you guys always do. And for the courtesy of everybody on the call, please ensure that your mic is muted if you're not actively asking a question or making a comment. All right. So fundamentally, we beginning of the week is relatively slow, right? We don't have a ton of happening from fundamental announcement perspective. Tonight we have Japan PPI and Chinese CPI and PPI, but investors are really sitting waiting on these numbers here. The dollar CPI. Core inflation is a really hot topic as we're looking at investors are trying to kind of get a beat on what the Fed might do next month. And Friday, we had jobs numbers that came in super hot, a lot higher than expected. And that gave some indications as the Fed kept saying, hey, jobs are still strong. The job market is still strong, so we're not in a recession. So the next piece we're looking at is the inflation, right? Is inflation starting to come down? So if this number comes in, say at or above expectation, we could see a lot of volatility in the market. And then on Thursday, we have producer price index, right? Another key inflationary measure, which will also give us some insight on inflation. We also have unemployment claims. And then on Friday, we have the pound GDP numbers, which will impact the pound likely in a relatively strong way. So this is the data that investors are really sitting waiting on. And then from there, they're going to start making some assumptions potentially regarding next month and how the Fed may play things going forward from a interest rate perspective, right? So that's what we're waiting on. So today we'll take a look at the dollar pairs. We'll also take a look at the yens as well. So that's really it from an announcement perspective. One of the things that we do have kind of lurking in the background is, as I read this article, European stocks cautious, right? Stocks in Europe were mostly lower on Tuesday, led by losses in miners, autos, and energy shares. Investors mull geopolitical tensions after China resumes military drills around Taiwan and worry over economic outlook and key inflationary data from the United States due tomorrow. So this China-Taiwan deal is something that I definitely want us, I mentioned this over the last couple of weeks, I want us to keep an eye on this China-Taiwan situation because it continues to escalate. Nancy Pelosi's made a trip over to Taiwan. China said, don't do it, or they're going to respond militarily. And Nancy Pelosi did it anyway. And everybody is trying to decrease China's tension. However, basically China's like, I told you not to do it. And so China is doing military drills inside of this designated area of Taiwan. Taiwan wants to be independent. China says that they're not independent. They're a part of China. So there's this back and forth. And China's becoming more and more aggressive around their defense of Taiwan, or the invasion of Taiwan, to ensure that they stay a part of the Chinese country, if you will. So things continue to heighten. And if things continue to move forward in an aggressive way, if China does ultimately invade Taiwan, there's going to be larger impacts. The United States haven't verbally stated this, but they've updated some websites, some government websites showing, stating that they support Taiwan from an ally perspective. So if something does happen, the United States will respond and protect Taiwan militarily. And then other countries will also be involved as well. And it'll be a larger scenario than what we may think. So I want us to keep an eye on that as we continue to move through the coming months. Just as we kept an eye on Russia and the invasion of Ukraine, we're also going to keep an eye on China as well, because this could lead to some larger things. And if it continues to escalate, investors will start to key in on some of those things as well from a risk perspective. So that is that's something I want to keep an eye on. So we're going to dive into the charts now. The dollar continues to range, right? We were unable to close back above this monthly resistance level, right? If we bounce back to the monthly, right? This is a previous monthly high here. We haven't been able to close above it yet, right? We had a strong reaction to that level, right? We know this level is very, very, very strong. So not able to close above it. We dropped to the weekly, and this is what we have. We had a new AB boundary, shallow retracement, price push to the 118, 127 zone. And we're starting to get some retracement action now. We're hovering around this B boundary area. Okay. Again, investors waiting on CPI data to really give a firm decision on where we're going to move, right? So we had this nice decisive candle down. We got some indecision at the close of last week. And now we're hovering to see if we push back up and give us another decision candle to the upside, or if we get some movement back down. Okay, so that's from a weekly perspective. We got a new swing high that occurred there, right? So back to the daily time frame, this is the look, right? Still another shallow retracement, price hovering in this 118, 127 zone on the daily. We got a break, but came right back into the zone. So that's what we're waiting to see, is if we can close back above this monthly level. If we do, we could be at least headed back to the weekly level, hit the D extension on the daily, potentially push into this cluster of resistance that we have up here. It's 13,200 range. Okay, so just sitting waiting, right? It's just sideways pushes, and more sideways pushes. Okay, so even if you drop down to the 4, you still see we got a retracement, and we're coming back, right? So we're going to see if we get another push to the upside at some point this week, or if price just turns over and continues to barrel down to the downside. Okay, so that's where we sit. That's where we sit on the dollar. Benny, good morning, bro.
Good morning, Ryan. Good morning, everybody. How are you today?
I'm doing well, man. How about yourself?
Doing great. Glad to be here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Glad to have you, man. Glad to see you. So that's the dollar. That's the dollar. That's where we sit. Okay. We'll hop over to the dollar CAD. And the dollar CAD, we're still hovering in this range on the 4, right? We bounce back to the daily, take a look at it, right? Take this out real quick. We got our AB boundary coming to the upside, where we got a 50% retracement already on this push to the downside, right? And now we're still hanging around in this range. Okay, still hanging around in this range. Daily resistance, couldn't close back above it. daily support here. Okay, so just sideways push, looking to see again if we get that turnover and push back to the upside in favor of the dollar. So that's what we want to see. After we take a look at this, we'll take a look at oil really quick to give that the look on where oil stands as well. We talked about that last week, and it did some fun things. So we got this push down, and we're trying to see if we're able to break out of this range at some point, or do we just continue to bounce in range sideways? Okay, so we drop down to the 4, and our fib here on the 4 is coming from the high, like so, right? And so here on the 4, we have the shallow retracement price sitting in this 118, 127 zone, right? Just ranging, looking to see if we can get a push back to the upside, get to the higher levels of this down fib and this down retracement zone on the 4, right? But you got back and forth, so you're in an up retracement zone on the daily, you're in a down retracement zone on the 4, right? Which hints at we're in a range, okay? So that's where we sit. It's just sideways right now. So sitting, hanging tight, looking to see what the data tells us as we continue to move forward, okay? If we drop down to the 1, take a look at it from the 1 hour perspective. We did get a 38.2 push with this wick here, right? But it just stayed in the range, not able to clearly close above that daily level, okay? So as we head back down to the bottom of this range, we'll then see if we get a bounce back to the top of it, and then do we break it, okay? So that's the full look at the dollar CAD, just sideways right now, looking to see what decision we get as we move forward. Any questions on the dollar CAD? No? All right, cool deal. Let's pop over and look at oil real quick. So oil, we talked about oil last week, and we said, we're in this range. Desi broke down the range to us. She said we're looking to see if she breaks below, and that's what we got, right? We got to break out of that range to the downside, and we hit the D extension off the daily time frame here, right? And this down fib here, push down, hit the D extension, close below that weekly level, and close below this daily level. Well, try to close below the daily level, but we got to push back above, right? So now we zoom in on this, and we're coming back to retest this range that we broke out of, right? So it's a question of, hold on. It's a question of, do we retest that range and stay lower, or do we push back into the range? Okay. Do we stay below the range, or do we press back into the range? That's the question. Okay, we'll extend that out a little bit. Ran trend lines to the downside here on the daily, right? Just to see how price responds, right? Because there is potential, right? We could push up into the trend line like so, and then potentially get this run back down to the downside, still staying below that range. So we'll see. Okay, we'll see. But we did clearly close below on the daily time frame, 2 strong bearish candles to the downside outside of that range. Okay, so as a drop to the 4, once today's candle closes, right? If today's candle closes bullish, that'll give us a new swing low, right? That'll give us a new swing low. So our new level of daily support would come here. Okay, we'll leave it here for now, but just know that, and that would also give us a new fib to the downside, like so, right? So if price does continue to push back up slightly, get into that 236 level, shallow retracement, right, in conjunction with that trend line, that could be a little confluence forces that, hey, we could see rejection and then push back down to the downside, breaking back below these levels and getting down into this 118, 127 zone, around $80, $77, $76, that range. Okay, so that's something for us to watch here on oil, to see if we get that turnover and push back down at some point to stay below that range. Okay, as we drop to the 4, clean this up. Oh, didn't want to do that. Take that out, where we draw it. So on the 4, right, that fib has already popped in. And this is what we look like, all right? So this is our new AB boundary on the 4-hour time frame here, okay? And we see that close below, and now we see that retracement that's occurring now, right? See the retracement, strong bullish candle, pressing back in, right? We got a previous consolidation also sitting at this 236 level, right? So a lot of times when you get strong bearish movement, price likes to take back a portion of that move, okay? So this is what we could see is this move back here to the upside, right? Back into this consolidation zone, right? To retest those levels, which is also in line with that trend line, okay? So we'll continue to watch this to see if we get this type of action here on oil, right? If we do, we can then look for those CAD pairs to flip over and push back in the opposite direction of the Canadian dollar potentially, okay? So that's oil. That's oil, and that's what we're looking for from a long-term perspective, right? See if we get this retracement, finish out, and then get another push back down to the downside. Desi, what are your thoughts on this?
Good morning.
Good morning.
The same. However, if you go to the weekly for me, please.
Yeah.
And if you run your feet from the bottom.
There we go.
So I am looking at that right there.
Okay. Okay. 618 retracement off the weekly time frame.
Yep.
I dig it. I dig it. Right. Price push right back into the sweet spot. I dig that. Okay. So there's a little bit of so you're looking at the buy opportunity, not another push down. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I see that. And you got some previous resistance here.
Yes.
I dig it. I dig it.
So even if they think that it will go lower, I was looking at the weekly and I'm figuring that it might just turn over.
Okay. Okay. That's a good perspective. Good perspective. Right. The long-term view, if we get a break of that trend line, right, we could be headed back to the upside. And these are higher levels that we have been looking at over the long term, right? At some point, looking at price to get up here in this 150, 250 range at some point. So that's a good look. That's a good look. We shall see. We shall see when that turnover occurs.
Yeah.
I dig it. Appreciate that perspective.
Thank you.
That perspective. So we got good people. So we got long-term perspective. We're sitting at a 618 retracement on the weekly time frame. And then on the daily and the 4, we're looking at a down retracement zone, right? Down retracement zone could be the beginning of that turnover, right? If we get a break of that trend line. So we shall see. Shall see. All right. Any questions on oil? No? Okay. Cool deal.
I was just gonna say regarding the news and things like that, it's just saying that, it's been dropping, so maybe it's time.
Yeah. And things are still happening in the background, right? You still have, so we talked about that oil embargo in Europe, right? Coming off of Russian oil. What you're starting to see is some of those countries kind of pushing back. They're saying, hey, we can't really do this. We don't have enough oil storage. And as Russia is starting to cut off some of those supplies prematurely, along with the turbine issue, right, with the Nord Stream 1 pipeline, some of these countries are like, hey, we can't do this. We don't have enough storage. So maybe we need to rethink this oil embargo thing. And they're trying to figure out some backdoor deals on how they can get some more oil, right? We know we had the United States go over to Saudi Arabia and try to get them to bring in some more some more supply. They're tapped out, but they're still buying Russian oil. So they could say, hey, we can give you some more supply, right? But on the back end, it's going to be Russian supply that they're ultimately just going to be transitioning through the system and giving it to the rest of the world, right? So that's still happening in the background. So that's still yet to be seen on how that actually plays out. You also have these countries that are trying to get more supply. They're also pretty tapped out on their overall capacity, right? So we still have a supply issue, right? Still have a supply issue. And we still have somewhat of a demand issue as well, seeing as China hasn't fully come out of these lockdowns. And there's some tension brewing with Taiwan. So it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out from an overall geopolitical perspective. So ton of back and forth, but we kind of see it with that range, and then we'll see how this plays out at the bottom of that range. So it'll be interesting to see. It will be interesting to see. Ben, you got any?
It was good to get the break in terms of the prices going down, though.
Yeah. It was definitely interesting to see that. Now it's, do we stay outside, right? Do we stay outside of it? Do we press back in? But yeah, it was definitely good to see it, and we'll see if we get a continuation down or not. Yeah, for sure. Ben, you got any thoughts on that, bro?
No, man, I'm kind of falling in line with exactly what you guys are saying. It's just so many variables, right, around oil and supply. What we could do here in the United States, what it's just a mess. It's a mess, man. I just hope they, I don't know, I hope this war just it ends up being done a lot sooner than later, man.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, I agree. All right, so that's oil. So let's continue moving through some of these dollar pairs. The dollar Swiss, right? So dollar CAD, looking at potential for, right, deeper retracement there, right? Pop over to the dollar Swiss and come back to the daily. And we look at it, right? So from a daily time frame perspective, pull these trend lines out, clean this up for us a little bit. Daily time frame perspective, right? We're sitting at a 50% retracement. We got a weekly support here as well. And we're just hovering, right? Similar to that dollar CAD, just hovering sideways in this range, okay? And we want to see, do we get a push out, right? The second touch at this weekly support level, not able to close below, okay? And we're coming back to retest some of this move to the upside. So now it's a question of, do we get this push to the upside and continue there? Okay. That calls for a bullish movement on the dollar, right? We know we're waiting on the CPI data for tomorrow. So if it comes in hot, right, could see that, right? If it comes in below, we could see that. Okay. So those are the two options there. So we could continue to hover sideways throughout the day today. Okay. And ultimately, right, if it breaks below this weekly support in strong bearish fashion, right, look for a retest and then continuation lower. Okay. We got some previous resistance here, right, which is also in line with this new swing low that formed right here. I got my stop loss sitting there, but so daily support right there. Okay. Right, in line with previous resistance, right? So that could give us a little more strength in that support level, in that support zone, right? As we continue to bounce back and forth, which also could, lend to some of the fundamentals that may occur if we get that push back to the upside. Okay. So as we drop down to the 4, okay. Zoom out here. And Yeah, so those got taken out. Double top there. Push down. Okay, so this is that range overall on the 4, right? We got a 618 retracement off this down retracement zone, but we couldn't break out to the downside, right? So now do we press back up to the top of this range and push higher, give us, right, triple top type scenario over the long term? Okay, so that's something for us to watch if we get that pushback to the upside. Okay, but sideways movement nonetheless. Sideways movement nonetheless, right? We'll just run our run our trend lines to the downside, like so, and we'll wait and see what happens. We'll wait and see what happens tomorrow. Okay. That's the long-term view. If you zoom in just on this last leg to the upside, and just look at this formation here, right? You see you got a 618 just shy of a 786 retracement off of the sub fib to the downside. So again, the question is, do we turn over and push back up, right? Matching the extension off the sub fib is here at 97,627. Okay, let's see if we get that push to the upside. If we get a push to the downside, likely that we get back to that A, potentially take it out, and then continue pressing lower. Okay, so that's a longer term view and a shorter term view. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for on this dollar Swiss, is what direction we move. Okay, so that's how we got it set up from a long-term perspective. Questions here on this dollar Swiss? Zoom into the 1, take a look. Step move up, take those out. Here on the 1, that's our fib on the 1 hour, right? We got a 50% retracement, double top, push back down. Again, all signaling, hey, we're in a range, right? We're in a range. So that's what it looks like from the 1 hour, right? You can run an inner trend line coming like that, like so. Okay, cool deal. So that's a dollar Swiss. Dollar yen. Dollar yen. I don't trade this much. Let me clean up my scenario here. Let's see what we got. See what we got. See what we got. Pop back to the daily. Bang. Right. So this is where we are from a daily time frame perspective, right? Shallow retracement, 118, 127 zone, push down. Still haven't gotten to that 382 yet. Still haven't got to that 382 yet. Couldn't close below this week, this daily support level that we formed here, right? And then we got that rejection. Similar look on a lot of these yen crosses, right? Couldn't fully break out of the range that it was in, and we got these nice retracements that occurred. So now it's just a question of, do we turn over and continue to press to the downside, right? Does this create a lower high, right, and press down to give us a deeper retracement, or do we continue to press to the upside? Okay, so that's the question here. That's the question here from a daily time frame perspective. Okay, so let's drop to the 4. Zoom out, right? That push down on the 4 gave us a 50% retracement, right? And then we got the nice rejection. So you got some back and forth, okay? Daily time frame still got some opportunity for movement to the downside. On the 4 hour, we got a 50% retracement. So it's just a question of where the dollar falls. This one gets interesting because there's a lot of back and forth. You got the dollar, which can be used as a risk on asset and a risk off asset. And then you have the yen, which is a risk off asset. So there's a lot of back and forth here that can occur. So it ranges quite a bit. So that's the scenario that looks like we could be playing into, is just this range that we could sit in for a little while, right? And we could sit in for a little while. So we'll see. We'll see. You could potentially have also a crown pattern here, right? So if this plays out, you could see pushback to the downside, turnover, continuation down lower. right? So keep your eyes on this as well as a potential option. 618 retracement off of this harmonic fib sequence, right? Matching the extension of 124, 659. Okay. A couple different scenarios, a couple different options, right? So keep your eyes peeled there. If we stay above this daily level, right? You could see another push higher. If we do fully turn over and press down, break your trend line, we could see this move to the downside. Okay. So we'll watch that to see how this one plays out. It'll be interesting. If you run just a trend line there, right, and just wait on that trend line break, right? You could again get that sideways movement for a little bit, and see if we get trend line break and a push to the downside. Okay, what we got? Looks as if the move is finished. Potentially, right? If this does play out in a King's Crown pattern, right, we could see that continue turnover and push further down. Sub fib is at a 618 retracement. Done that, you running off the top. Yep. Done that, looking at this move here, right? 618 retracement. So you got a little bit of confluence here, right? Potential crown pattern. Got a 618 retracement off of the sub fib to the upside. Hovering at this daily level, this daily zone. So we could see it, right? So what we'll do is we'll trade what we see, right? If we get a trend line break off of this, right? If we get a trend line break off of this and a break below this daily now holding as support was resistance, right? Something like this, right? That'll be our signal, our indication. Hey, look for those continued moves to the downside, right? If price stays above, right? Look for that continued push to the upside, right? Potentially coming back and giving us maybe a double top scenario, getting to the D extension, right? Something like that. And then we'll see how price responds there if we get that push back to the upside, right? Have to break through that trend line as well, but we shall see, right? So those are scenarios, right? If price breaks our trend line, breaks a support, right? Gives us a retest of that level as then acts as a resistance. We'll look for short opportunities, continuing to the downside here to finish out that King's Crown pattern. If price stays above the trend line and pushes up, we'll wait for a higher price, right? And then look for short opportunities, or we could just get long with $1, right? And continue to push to the upside, okay? So we'll see how that CPI data comes out tomorrow and see how this one responds. We'll see. Marshall says, I'm bullish on this pair. Japan is keeping interest rates low. Yep. U.S. possibly going up again. Potentially, right? Potentially. Japan is definitely standing firm on their stance with no signs of changing. So we shall see, right? We'll see how it reacts to the data that comes out tomorrow morning, right? But those are the scenarios. If price does this, then we do this. If price stays to the upside, then we'll look for continuations higher. All right. Any other questions or any other thoughts on this dollar yen? Ben, are you still holding short on this, man?
No, I'm actually a dollar bull.
You long on it?
Yeah. The CPI data will be key tomorrow. But it's just hard. It's just, I mean, to play it on the correction, it's cool. But once it dropped into that zone, that right, that deeper correction, then I'm thinking long dollar. Just because from a monetary policy perspective, all the other central banks has really kind of tailed off on the forward guidance in regards to any guarantees of aggressive hikes.
They have.
They're all using the same language of it, being data dependent going forward, except for the United States.
Yeah.
The United States, especially after last week, you had a lot of central bank leaders talking pretty hawkish in regards to the dollar. And then, I mean, you had the strong higher than expected jobs numbers. So we'll see what that CPI comes through tomorrow in regards to inflation, to see if what the Fed is doing right now is having, if we're seeing any effect, right? We know once they put something in place, then the effect is going to be lagging.
Yep.
So as we move forward through the summer into the fall, we should start to see some of the effects of what the Fed is doing to kind of combat inflation. So we'll see if it tails off tomorrow. We know what happens if it comes through tomorrow and misses expectations. You're going to see a reaction in the market because people are going to speculate. Investors are going to speculate. They're super emotional right now about everything. They're going to speculate. They're going to speculate that the bets are off in regards to a super aggressive rate hike moving into the fall. So I just find it hard to bet against the dollar right now.
I agree with that. I agree with that for sure. It's hard to bet against the dollar. Definitely hard to bet against the dollar for sure. For sure. Yeah. So we'll see how that data comes out tomorrow. Right. See how it comes out.
Yeah. And that's not to say that, if it misses forecast, that you won't see a deeper correction off this leg that's moving up now. So you may see that trend line break to the downside, but I'm still long-term still favoring the dollar, unless we get something, that happens, that causes, all of a sudden the word, for everything to move into that risk off mode. But we know that sentiment has been pretty steady in regards to risk on, risk off.
Yeah, it has. It has for sure. It has for sure.
So just ride the dollar until I can't ride it anymore. Really. It'll tell me when, right? That's right.
It'll tell us when for sure.
Yeah. I just want to make sure if I get stopped out, I get stopped out in profit.
Heck yeah.
And reevaluate things from that point.
Heck yeah. I'm with you on that, man. I'm with you on that for sure. Any other questions on this dollar yen? Nope. All right, cool deal. Let's take a look at this Aussie dollar. Ranging. Interesting things though, right? So let's take a look at this. So on the daily time frame, we're looking at this thing pushing to the downside, right? We agree. Price moving down, right? What's interesting is we got some similar action. So we're looking at this pair back here, right? And we played this move to the downside off of this double top at this weekly resistance. We had a 50% retracement. We saw price stall at this 118, 127 zone, pushed back up, installed again at this weekly level, and then turned over and pushed down. It gave us a double top scenario here, right? And on this move down, right, that created the swing low, right, we had push down, slight retracement, and then we got price to finish out. So if we look over here, we have almost a similar action, right? And take the fib off for a second, right? And just look at this, okay? So we had this action here. All right, we had price push down, gave us this, right? Some people might have tried to play this as a potential head and shoulders pattern, right? But we got this double top scenario here, price turned over, gave us this small move here, and then pressed down, right? So if we look at this scenario here, we got similar action, right? You got that nice press down, you got a retracement into a resistance level, previous support. We got a press to the downside. Price came back to that zone. And then we got this same bearish action, retracement, right? So that just caught my eye and intrigued me, seeing as we're getting a similar look that we did previously on this move to the downside. So I'm interested to see if we do get this continuation lower as we did here. Okay. So that caught my eye as I was looking at this, was just some similar action, similar movement when you came into the trend line here. So that's what I'm watching just from an overall price action perspective, right? How price responds at this trend line in this bearish move, retracement, almost not quite double top scenario here in this daily zone. Okay, so that definitely caught my eye. It's very intriguing to see if we get that continuation as we did here to the downside. So that's one piece to my analysis here and how I'm looking at this. Overall, again, as Benny said, right, bullish on the dollar. Even with the Aussie dollar interest rate increases, they're still data dependent, right? Which we saw, interest rate increases and price still pushed to the downside. So we're sitting at this trend line, right? And we're just hovering, but we got a break, pull back, and we're retesting that trend line again. Okay. The reason that I shifted this trend line out is on this break to the upside, we got a break here, but then we just push sideways, right? We just push sideways here, and now we're just hovering, right? So this is more of a range as opposed to a strong break and retest, in my opinion. So that's why I shifted that daily trend line to the outermost point like this, right? You guys see that? Does that make sense? Right? We're just ranging here. So if we push sideways through a trend line, shift it to the outermost point. That's my thought there. So sitting there on the trend line, as we drop down to the 4, right? This is our fib sequence to the downside. AB boundary, we got an 8-6 retracement, and this is just that sideways push, right? Sideways push, broke down, but came right back into the zone. Okay, so we want to see, do we get a full turnover and press down? Do we get maybe another push to the upside, give us a double top scenario here at that 8-6 retracement level, right? And then turn over and press down, or do we just continue to move sideways until tomorrow, right? Either way, we're in this range here that we're looking for price to break out of. Okay. Right here. Okay. So that's what we want to see, is a break out of the range in one direction or the other. Bias is to the downside for me, right? In favor of the dollar. We'll see how that CPI data comes out and fares, right? We could get a push up to that daily resistance level and then a push down. We'll see. We'll see, right? So that's where we sit. We got an 8-6 retracement, matching extensions down here at 67056, right? Should be at this low point here. Okay. So that's from a 4-hour perspective. We drop down to the 1 and you see more of that sideways push there, right? Also from a 1-hour perspective, you got a deep retracement, 8-6 level, similar deal. Okay. So trend line, that would have been your original trend line there. Seeing as price push back into that range, right? Shift it like so. And then run your inner trend line to the upside like that. Okay. So that's where we sit on the 1 in regards to this Aussie dollar. Questions on that? No? All right, cool deal. I'm gonna pop some of these yen crosses in here as well as we move through. Aussie yen, right? This is that range that we've been watching, right? Couldn't break out to the downside. It had a strong reaction here and prices pressing back up. Okay. We got previous consolidation that we're starting to press into now, right? Starting to press into and retest the zone here, right? So we want to see, right? Does price continue to press up into the zone, right? Potentially coming back around this area here. And then do we get price to turn over and come back down to the downside, or do we continue to press higher, right? You got options there, okay? But sideways movement nonetheless, right? We can all agree on that. So as we drop down to the 4, on the 4, this is where we sit, sitting at a 618 retracement. We got a sideways push happening right now. And we'll see, right? Could potentially be in for one more push to the upside to get back to this daily resistance level, right? Before we see price turn over and press down. We got some things on the lower time frame that could give us some indication of where that could be if we run this sub fib to the upside, right? Just to see if we have a little bit of confluence. We got a 236 retracement, right? So we're sitting in this 118, 127 zone, right? Off the sub fib, which is in conjunction with this 618 retracement. Okay. So if this level holds, right, which is previous support, resistance now, if this level holds, right, we could see this turnover and press down. Okay. But we could also see that push to that matching D extension off the sub fib, which is right here at the 94830 level. So we'll see. We'll see. This one also, I believe, will be more data dependent coming into tomorrow as well, on how this moves in one direction or the other, right? If we break out of this daily resistance to the top side, right, we could see more bullish movement happen. But as long as we stay below this daily level, looking for short opportunities on this Aussie yen, moving to the downside, right? So that's the 4-hour look. As we drop to the 1, this is where we are, right? On the 1-hour time frame, 118, 127, off of a shallow retracement, right? So the sub fibs, right? These smaller waves, this is a capital fib on the 1, sub fib on the 4. That does give us some indication, right? A little bit of confluence that we could get this move to the downside, right? So definitely keep your eyes peeled on this, right? As long as this resistance level holds, right? Look for that move to the downside off that 80-20, right? And off that sub fib on the 4, right here. Okay. So we got 80-20 off the sub fib on the 4, 80-20 on the 1, in line with the 618 retracement off of the 4-hour capital fib. So that's some confluence for us on a move to the downside. So keep your eyes peeled there. Wait on your confirmations. But we could definitely be in for that move to the downside sometime in the very near future. Okay. Ms. Cassandra, got a question?
I'm in that move on the downside.
You're in that to the downside?
And I got in it, it was midday yesterday before it started moving sideways.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good scenario. Really good scenario, right? Your rules are met. You took the trade. That's awesome. That's awesome, right? Now just let the move play out, right? Be patient, allow it to do what it's going to do. I love it. I love it. I love it. Great job. Great job. Great job identifying that. You're welcome. Any thoughts on this Aussie yen? Any other questions?
I just like to wait until it break like the structure, like, you know.
You wait for that trend line break? Yeah, for sure.
Below the structure though before, because
yeah, with these yen crosses.
yeah.
Something like that. Something like that, and then give you that last move down. Yeah.
Even the other structure, like right by the B.
Oh, break below this the B boundary also. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I dig it. Right, because you have previous resistance here.
Yeah.
Right, so that range, right, break below, retest, continuation. I'm with that, right? I'm definitely with that too. Right, good job. Good job with the patience. Good job following your rules, right? When you see it, take it, right? If it meets your rules, take it. Pull the trigger. That's how we learn. That's how we learn. So awesome job. Awesome job. So we'll see how this continues to play out, right? But ultimately looking for downward movement. We got a lot of confluence in the zone. So we'll see, right? We'll see. Looked at that one. Euro dollar is still ranging. Still ranging straight sideways. We never got that push at 382. Just moving sideways. Not a ton to it, right? As we continue to break it down, come down, It's just a sideways move, right? Just a sideways move. So just waiting on price to break out of the consolidation, right? Would love to see it push up, get to that 382 level, and then give a push to the downside. But we may or may not see that. Okay. This is just more detail of that sideways push, right? But that's where we're sitting. That's where we're sitting. That's the range. Okay. So that CPI data might give us some indication, it might get us to break out of that and push back down to this parity level, but we just got to wait and see. Just got to wait and see. Okay. So not much happening there. On the 4, I got a trend line running to the upside. If I get a breakdown and a break of that trend line, right, that'll give me some indication, but you see it's just sideways. So just sit tight and be patient there. Euro yen, similar to that Aussie yen on the retracement, right? Previous consolidation zones here, right? Engulfing candle pushed down. Got a nice retracement coming back to retest the area that it broke out of, right? We broke below this key daily level, right? Weren't able to fully break out to the downside and get to that 382, but nice retracement here. Okay, nice retracement. So now, does this zone hold, right? Has some previous support, came back, retest, break, retest. Now we look for continuation, right? If price stays below this level, we'll look for continuation down, right? We already got a 618 retracement. So the matching B extension is here at 132.273. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. See if we get that move to the downside. We drop to the 4, right? A little bit more confirmation here. Okay. This is our active AB boundary. I'll remove that for a second. All right, active AB boundary. We're getting a nice retracement here. We're sitting at a 382 on the 4. Sitting at a 382 on the 4. Again, retesting this consolidation zone and previous support right here. Okay, so if this zone holds, right, see price turn over and press to the downside. Didn't get up into your sweet spot. So when you're looking at opportunities to add to the trade, if price doesn't press up here into the 618 level and get back to this weekly resistance, right, I won't have an opportunity to add to this trade, right? But that's okay, right? Price is pressing to the upside, pressing to the upside. If we get a turnover, still in the move to the downside, we'll continue to let it rock, let it happen, okay? So what you could do is run the trend line to the upside like so. If you get a trend line break, bang, opportunity enter, and run to the downside if that meets your rules, right? Didn't give you a deep retracement, but that's the trend line to the upside there, okay? And then as we drop to the 1, here's where it gets interesting, right? Shallow retracement, 118, 127 zone on the 1, right? And this is that previous support zone from the higher time frames. So confluence here, right? You got a 38.2 retracement here, which again, we'd like price to at least get back to a 38.2 level. But then here on the 1, right, where your additional confirmation comes in, is you got shallow retracement and the 118, 127 push. Bang. Right. So now if you're looking to enter this off the 1 hour time frame, right? If that's the time frame you trade on, right? Wait for your trend line break, right? And give you opportunity to enter and look for that move, that continuation down. Okay. So keep your eyes on that one from a 1 hour perspective. Let's see if we get that action and get that move to the downside there. Cool deal.
Question on that one.
Yeah.
If you go back to the 4 hour, I had drawn mine as if the 4 hour was going into, let's see, if I had drew my 4 hour fib from the bottom. And
like that.
Let me see.
Where did you start it from?
Yeah, it would have been that last swing low. And
right here.
let me see. A, B. And the way, okay, that last swing low right below that B was where I had, yes, that was where I had
Right here?
started it. Yes.
Oh, okay. So you ran a sub fib off the low. Okay.
And right. Okay. And running that sub fib that way, at first, when we were talking about this on Saturday, it looked like the 4 hour was about to go into that 80-20, but then it pushed higher into the D. So as it's pushing higher into the D there, that's where I was looking at it for if dropping to the 1 hour, that gives you a sense that it may possibly hit some resistance there. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Right? For sure. Yeah, that gives you some confirmation, right? Because these key fib levels, right, are support and resistance levels as well, right? So if you drop a horizontal line here, right, it runs right into the support level here, right? You have consolidation there, resistance, right? Support, resistance, right? So those key fib levels definitely do give you additional insight on support and resistance levels as well. Right. So that's a good eye, right? Pushing to the D extension, right? Level of resistance. And right, the 1 hour kind of confirms that too, right? You got the sideways push here, and you can see those levels really clearly here. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, good eye there.
Okay.
Good eye there. Right. And then two, it didn't break the trend line, right? It didn't break your trend line. So that's another piece to add to it, especially with these yen crosses, because they can run in both directions. Either things are running against the yen or the yen is running against things. Waiting on that confirmation, right? Waiting on that trend line break. And we didn't get it here on the lower time. I mean, on the higher time frames. On the lower time frame, right? You would have had a nice short-term move off of this, right? So that would have been right here, Thursday, Friday. It would have been in here, right? So this would have been right retracement that occurred, short-term, smaller move, right? That would have been an 80 pip move to the downside, getting you back to that 38.2 level, right? If you played that off the 15-minute time frame. Off of this trend line break here, right? So that definitely could have been a play off a shorter time frame yesterday, right? And that moved down, getting you close to 100 pips. If you wanted to play that, right? We didn't quite get to that 38.2 level yet, so it's kind of shallow, but that could have been the move, right? Like that. Now price pushed back up into that 118, 127 zone, right? And this could potentially give you a cleaner, if you're trading off the 15-minute time frame, that could give you a cleaner setup there, right? Because the price pushed into that 118, 127 zone, still haven't gotten to that 38.2. So short-term traders off the 15, there's your setup there, right? There's your setup there.
Got it.
Yep. Good eye though. Good eye.
I'm also looking for, this is something that I learned a couple of weeks ago when we were going through the chart. Even though I'm drawing my trend lines, I want to see a swing high or a swing low before it breaks that trend, before I enter. That's one of the rules that I'm looking at now.
Yeah. It's a great rule, right? Because what does that swing high represent? Level of resistance, right? So yeah, no, that's a great rule. Swing high, trend line break, swing low, trend line break. If you look at it here on the daily time frame, right? Look at it here on the daily. You got swing low that formed, 2 candles to the right, and then you got this move to the upside, right? That's confirmation that from a higher time frame that this thing is moving up, right? Same thing here, right? You got 2 candles to the left, 2 candles to the right. And then what happened? Price broke down.
Right.
Same thing here. 2 candles to the right, 2 candles to the left. Price pushed up. Right. So that's on any time frame, looking at it from that perspective, is definitely a good additional point of confirmation to add in, right? Swing high, trend line break, level of resistance, shift in direction and momentum. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, it's beautiful. Great job. Great job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. And it adds additional level of confirmation, right? Takes a little bit more patience, absolutely, but increases the probability that price will move in your favor. Right. So that's awesome. Awesome. Sell them at 138,497. Push into that zone a little bit more. I dig it. One last push to the upside for sure. All right, let's take a look at this pound dollar. And then we will wrap it up for the day. So pound dollar, still trying to press to the downside, right? Came into that trend line, came into that downtrend line. Did I take my fib off of this? Oops. Looks like I did. There we go. Okay, so from a daily time frame perspective, that fib is pretty large, but this is the move here to the downside. Okay, and it's just been moving to the downside. We're looking at this 114,117 as a potential destination to give us a double bottom scenario potentially, right? But price is just trying to push its way to the downside. Okay, came into the trend line, didn't break above, pushed back down, continuing lower. Okay, so as we drop to the 4, take a look at this. On the 4 hour, we got a 618 retracement, right? And this is that trend line and that push down, right? And we stalled at this daily support, previous resistance. Just want to see if we get a break below that, right? CPI data will be a good indicator for us, but if we're able to break down below that, potential pullback, retest, and then give us a continuation, making its way down to matching the extension and this monthly support level at some point. All right, but bearish on this nonetheless, looking for some continuation to happen there. If you drop to the 1, and this was the look at that, if we get that push lower, right, ultimately we'll take out that A and we'll get a new fib sequence to the downside, like so. Okay, now off these sub fibs off the high, you're sitting at you got a 618 retracement. Price is just hovering in the zone right now, right? So this could potentially be sub fib opportunity to play this to the downside after tomorrow. Okay, wouldn't want that. Nope. If you get a break of that trend line there, but you got a 618 retracement off this 1 hour, matching the extension is here. 238 pips to the downside. Okay. So we shall see. Price press down, gave you almost a double top scenario here, right? And we'll see if we get some continuation in that movement to the downside at some point today, tomorrow, depending on how that data comes out. Right. But ultimately, I'm looking bearish on this, looking for price to push down, take out this A on the 1 hour, continue down to these lower levels. Okay, so sitting tight on that one right now. Questions on that pound dollar? Nope. Okay, cool deal. Any questions on anything that we covered today?
Hi, Ryan.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
What's up?
I'm good, but I came in late. So I was wondering if we could take a look at AU and GJ.
We took a look at those already. I do have to hop off. We did take a look at the Aussie dollar already. Waiting on CPI data. CPI data is coming out tomorrow. But we did take a look at it. All right.
Okay.
Presence to the upside, looking for at some point in continuation to the downside, getting to these lower levels as we're bullish on the dollar.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
And I'll take a look at the pound yen in the morning for sure.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? No. All right, Benny, got anything before we close out, bro?
No, sir. No, nothing besides the fact, hey, I look forward to seeing everybody this evening, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Asian session. That's all I have. Great session, man.
Appreciate it, bro. See you guys tonight, 9 p.m. Have an awesome day. Peace.